The zipper stopped halfway up her back, and for a brief moment the room held its breath. The man standing behind her. Tired eyes, rough hands, a shirt that had been ironed too many times, slowly pulled the zipper the rest of the way up. His fingers trembled, not from fear, but from the weight of the words he knew he had to say. And then, leaning slightly closer, so only she could hear, he whispered the sentence that would change both their lives forever. "Hay's not coming." The woman in the elegant navy dress froze, staring at her reflection in the mirror of the empty conference room. Outside, beyond the glass walls of the tall office building, the city lights shimmered like distant stars. Everything about the evening had been planned perfectly. The charity gala, the investors, the speeches, the photographs that would appear in tomorrow's newspapers. Everything except the quiet truth that had just been spoken by the man she had barely noticed before. But sometimes, the smallest moments, an unfinished zipper, a quiet whisper, become the turning points of entire lives. Before we continue, take a second to support stories that remind us kindness still exists in this world. If you believe in compassion, second chances, and the quiet strength of ordinary people, please, like this video, share it with someone who needs a little hope today. Comment your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel. Stories of the Human Heart. Your support helps these stories reach people who might truly need them. Daniel Reyes had never imagined his life would look like this. 5 years earlier, he had been just another man with plans. He had a steady job repairing elevators across the city, a small but warm apartment, and a wife whose laughter used to echo through their kitchen every morning. They had talked about traveling someday, about raising children, about building a future that felt simple but meaningful. Then life had unraveled in a way he never saw coming. His wife, Sophia, became sick shortly after their son Mateo was born. At first it seemed like exhaustion, something every new parent experienced. But the hospital visits became longer, the doctors' faces more serious, and the words harder to understand. Within a year, Daniel found himself standing beside a hospital bed while machines beeped softly in the background, holding the hand of the woman he loved as she slipped quietly away. After that day, the world became a very different place. Suddenly, Daniel wasn't just a husband or a technician fixing broken machines. He was a single father, raising a toddler while trying to hold together the fragile pieces of a life that felt shattered. Nights became sleepless battles with crying, diapers, and the endless worry of whether he was doing anything right. Money grew tight quickly. Medical bills piled up like storms on the horizon. The elevator company eventually downsized, and Daniel's job disappeared with it. The apartment was replaced with a smaller one on the edge of the city. Every day felt like a race between responsibility and exhaustion. Yet through all of it, there was Mateo. Mateo had Sophia's eyes, bright, curious, always searching the world with wonder. When Daniel came home tired and defeated, Mateo would run toward him with arms wide open and a smile that somehow made everything feel lighter. It was that smile that kept Daniel moving forward. After months of searching for work, Daniel finally found a job as a night custodian in a towering corporate building downtown. It wasn't glamorous. The hours were long and lonely, the work repetitive, emptying trash cans, wiping desks, vacuuming carpets that executives walked across without ever noticing the man who cleaned them. But it paid enough to keep Mateo fed, clothed, and in daycare during the evenings. And Daniel was grateful. The building itself felt like another world. During the day it was alive with sharp suits, ringing phones, and the hum of powerful decisions being made behind glass doors. But at night, when Daniel arrived pushing his cleaning cart, the place became quiet and hollow. He moved through silent hallways like a shadow. Sometimes, he paused beside the large windows overlooking the city and wondered how different life might have been if circumstances had shifted just slightly. But regret never lasted long. Mateo needed him strong, focused, and hopeful. One evening, nearly 2 years into the job, something unusual happened. The building was preparing for its annual charity gala, a massive event hosted by the company's CEO, Victoria Langford. Daniel had heard the employees talk about her often. She was known as brilliant, demanding, and nearly impossible to impress. Under her leadership, the company had grown into a powerful force in the business world. But Daniel had never actually met her. To him, she was just another name spoken in passing while he quietly cleaned the floors. That night the building buzzed with unusual activity. Staff rushed around carrying decorations, caterers wheeled in trays of food, and bright lights illuminated the large ballroom on the top floor. Daniel stayed mostly out of the way, continuing his routine. But as the evening approached, one of the assistants hurried down the hallway toward him. "Victoria needs help upstairs," she said, quickly before disappearing again. Daniel hesitated. He wasn't used to being asked for anything except cleaning tasks. Still, he pushed his cart aside and took the elevator up to the executive floor. The hallway there was brighter, quieter, and far more luxurious than the floors he usually worked on. At the end of the corridor stood a private office suite with tall mirrors and soft lighting. Inside, Victoria Langford stood alone. She wore a deep navy dress that flowed elegantly to the floor. Her hair was styled perfectly, and diamonds shimmered faintly at her ears. Yet despite the glamour, there was something tense about her posture, something fragile hidden beneath the powerful image she presented to the world. She turned when Daniel entered. For a moment they simply looked at each other, two people from entirely different worlds standing unexpectedly in the same room. Then she spoke. The zipper on the back of her dress had caught halfway, stuck just out of reach. None of her assistants were nearby, and the gala was about to begin. Daniel stepped forward carefully, aware of the strange situation. His hands were steady but gentle as he fixed the zipper, guiding it smoothly upward. And that was when he noticed something else. Her phone lay on the table nearby, screen still glowing with a message that had just arrived. Daniel hadn't meant to read it, but the words were impossible to miss. "I'm not coming tonight. Don't call again." The message was from the man she had been waiting for all evening. Victoria didn't know Daniel had seen it. She simply stared ahead into the mirror, trying to maintain the composed expression that had made her famous in boardrooms and interviews. But Daniel had lived through loss before. He recognized the quiet tremor of someone holding back pain. So when he finished zipping the dress, he leaned slightly closer and whispered the truth she was trying not to face. "Is not coming." The room fell silent. Victoria's reflection in the mirror changed almost instantly. The powerful CEO disappeared for a moment, replaced by something much more human. A woman who had just been reminded that success in business doesn't always protect the heart. For several seconds she didn't move. Then she took a slow breath. "Thank you," she said quietly. Daniel nodded and stepped back, ready to return to his cleaning duties. But before he reached the door, she spoke again. "What's your name?" "Daniel." "Daniel, thank you for being honest." That moment could have ended there. Two strangers returning to their separate lives. But life rarely follows simple endings. Over the next several weeks, Victoria began noticing Daniel in small ways. Late at night, when she stayed in the office reviewing reports, she would see him carefully organizing desks or replacing trash liners with quiet efficiency. He never interrupted anyone, never complained, never asked for recognition. Yet there was something about him she couldn't ignore. Perhaps it was the tired kindness in his eyes, or the way he spoke about his son one evening when she happened to pass him on the elevator. His voice had softened instantly, filled with pride and warmth. Victoria had spent years surrounded by ambitious people chasing power and wealth. Genuine devotion like that felt rare. One night she asked him a simple question. "How old is Mateo now?" "4." Daniel replied with a small smile. "He thinks dinosaurs are the greatest thing ever discovered." Victoria laughed softly. That was the beginning. Gradually, brief conversations turned into longer ones. Daniel never tried to impress her, and that honesty made their conversations strangely refreshing. One evening she asked about his past, and Daniel quietly told the story of Sophia, the hospital, and the years of struggle afterward. Victoria listened without interruption. By the time he finished, her eyes looked different, softer, thoughtful. "You're stronger than most people I know," she said. Daniel shook his head. "I'm just a dad." But sometimes, being just a dad is the strongest thing in the world. Months passed. Then one morning something unexpected happened. Victoria called Daniel into her office. He worried immediately that he had done something wrong. Custodians weren't usually summoned by CEOs unless there was a problem. But when he stepped inside, Victoria handed him a folder. Inside were documents for a full-time building maintenance supervisor position, a job with better pay, stable hours, and benefits. Daniel stared at the papers in disbelief. "I noticed you fix things around here before anyone even reports them," she explained. "This building could use someone who actually cares about it." For Daniel, it felt like a door opening after years of darkness. He accepted. Life slowly began improving. The new schedule allowed him to spend more time with Mateo. They started visiting parks again, buying small toys without worrying about every dollar. But the most meaningful change wasn't the job. It was the friendship that quietly grew between Daniel and Victoria. She eventually met Mateo, who immediately decided the powerful CEO was cool, because she knew the names of several dinosaurs. Victoria laughed harder that afternoon than she had in years. And sometimes, late in the evening after meetings ended, she would think back to that moment in the mirror. The quiet whisper from a man who had nothing to gain by telling the truth. A whisper that reminded her honesty still existed in the world. Now, before we reach the final part of this story, take a moment to tell us something in the comments. Have you ever experienced a moment when a stranger's kindness changed your life? Right, kindness matters. In the comments if you believe small actions can transform someone's world. Years later, when people inside the company spoke about Daniel Reyes, they no longer referred to him as the janitor. They called him the man who kept the building running. But to Mateo, he was still something much simpler. He was Dad. And sometimes, on quiet evenings as the sun set beyond the city skyline, Daniel would remember that strange night long ago. The zipper, the whisper, and the moment two very different lives crossed paths. A moment that proved something powerful. That dignity doesn't come from titles. Strength doesn't come from wealth. And sometimes the people who quietly clean the floors are the very ones who hold the most courage in their hearts. If this story touched you even a little, please like the video, share it with someone who believes in kindness, and subscribe to the channel for more stories that remind us humanity still exists in everyday moments.